Hi, everyone. Welcome. And welcome to our session today. I'm Ander. For folks who don't know me, I'm a product manager on the Flutter team at Google. And while it is my face up there on this slide, I will not be doing the talking today. There's a discussion. It's an on-conference. And Loic, who will introduce himself, will be moderating. The topic of this discussion is adding support for Swift Package Manager in the context of the broader ecosystem. It's going to be unconference style, meaning Loic will be moderating. We'll pass the mic around as it's an open discussion in terms of asking questions, providing insights, opinions, and such. So it's really casual. So that's it, and we'll take it from there. Loic, can you go ahead?
Wow, microphone. Yeah, hello, I'm an engineer on Flutter. I work on both Flutter for Windows and Flutter for iOS. And currently my focus is migrating Flutter for iOS from CocoaPods to Swift Package Manager. So I want to hear from y'all what we can do to help this migration over, because while a lot of the work is on our end of enabling support for Swift Package Manager and Flutter, at the end of the day, we also need our entire ecosystem of Flutter iOS plugins to update to migrate away from CocoaPods to Swift Package Manager.
That is really it. So, I mean, Loic, we could to kick things off. Are there particular questions and/or topics or subtopics you'd like to hear from around here, or happy to have Chris start us off?
I just have a couple of questions. Not really. Got it. For posterity.
Are you Chris Sells?
Yeah. Hi.
Oh, hi. I know of you.
Okay. Hopefully that's a good thing.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So
Okay. Good.
I was on that.
Could go the other way, but okay. Good. So here. My understanding is, I'm a Flutter person, not an iOS person. So my understanding is all of this is happening because Apple is turning down support for CocoaPods, correct?
I wouldn't say it's Apple turning down CocoaPods. So CocoaPods was always its own standalone thing. It was community run, kind of just an effort to have dependency management. There were other efforts as well, like Carthage, but CocoaPods was one of the more popular ones. However, when Apple released Swift Package Manager, that kind of sucked the air out of the room. And it's not necessarily, Swift Package Manager is different. And just because it's the default one that Apple provides that's in the box of Xcode, most of the ecosystem, the iOS ecosystem, has migrated over to Swift Package Manager. And so, in fact, one thing that CocoaPods has stated is that they're actually slowly starting to transition to a read-only mode. And they've stated that most of their customers nowadays are actually Flutter developers and React Native developers, but not actually iOS developers because they've already migrated to Swift Package Manager. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. That helps. So does I wonder what the dates are from the CocoaPod maintainers, right? When they flip the bit to read only, that essentially kills that ecosystem, right? Because you won't be able to push important updates, right?
Yes.
And so I have this question and then one unrelated question, and then I'll hand this mic off to someone else. Do we know what that date is, and should that be the date that we as a community kind of all push for?
When they turn their ecosystem to read-only mode, it doesn't actually hurt us because the way that we integrate with CocoaPods, we're not actually pushing packages to CocoaPods.
No, I understand that, but it also means that those CocoaPods will never get new updates, which makes them dead code.
Exactly.
Which is why,
exactly.
Right, that seems like a drop-dead date in terms of, at least to me, in terms of moving.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's totally correct. I will say that most packages in the iOS ecosystem, they either drop support for CocoaPods or they now support both CocoaPods and Swift Package Manager at the same time. So generally what happens when the read-only mode will be flipped on, and I believe they have said what this date is, but when they will switch to that mode, then you should definitely migrate your plugin to Swift Package Manager to be able to update your dependencies.
Great.
Yeah.
And so now here's a related question, or unrelated question, which is there a automated way to just do this, right? Could we, the Flutter team, and I'm sorry, I'm not actually on the Flutter team, could the Flutter team actually write a tool that just went through all the packages and produced the PR to do the move?
Are we able to share the doc?
It's projected?
Yes.
Yes.
So we have guidance on how to migrate a package. Unfortunately, it's a little bit involved. It's not horrible. Once you do it once, it's totally fine, but it might feel a little overwhelming when you see the length of the guide, but I swear it's not that bad. I've done a bajillion of these packages already. We have tooling to find, we've downloaded all the pub packages and we've analyzed them to see which ones have CocoaPods. So we're aware of which packages need to be migrated, which ones have already migrated, which ones support both. Unfortunately, there's enough intricacies that it is difficult to do this in an automated way. We would love to do that if we could. Unfortunately, it's just too difficult, and the cost for us engineering-wise, it's just too difficult for us to do this automated. But we do have guidance. We want to make it as easy as possible. So one of the things I would love to hear is if people have tried to follow the guidance and found it difficult, like what can we improve? What wasn't clear? We want to make that guidance as easy as possible.
I think the real danger here, again, from a community point of view, is there are just people, if we can't automate it, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
We can't automate it. There are people who are just not
Yes.
actively updating their packages anymore.
Yes.
They're effectively dead. And every time we do one of these things, right, moving to null safety, we found a whole swath of people that are just dead packages, right? And this is another one of those things where you're going to draw that line, and all those people who aren't maintaining their packages, they're just going to stay like that forever.
Yes, and I do want to state up front that we're aware that maintenance is a very real task that a lot of people do in their own free time, and we're asking people to do work that often means like after hours, and so we recognize that this is an ask that we're asking for a lot from a community that's already giving us so much. So I completely understand your viewpoint. We're considering doing things like, and we want to be mindful about this again because we don't want to force people to do more work than they already are, but like, would it make sense for us to update the pub score to reflect the fact that a package supports CocoaPods or Swift Package Manager or vice versa? Though again, we want to be mindful that like we don't want to penalize people for not doing work when they've already done so much work. Like there's still a value in a plugin that supports only CocoaPods.
But it's diminishing over time.
Yes, yes,
Right.
yes. So we want to be thoughtful, and this is part of why we're having these discussions, because we want to hear from you, like what your thoughts are. Are we being too fast? Are we being too slow? That kind of feedback is really valuable for us to get it just right.
I think I would have multiple points. So the first one is, maybe it's not actually bad to leave some plugins behind if they're unmaintained, because whenever I see, oh, this is not Dart 3 compatible or whatever it is, okay, fine. Like I'll find another one that can solve it. And then secondly, probably also going full SPM will allow some nice improvements, right?
Yes.
So I think I'm a colleague of mine is the author, like 5-6 years ago, that we would like to use the bundled CocoaPod version in Flutter instead of the system provided one,
Yes.
because between different projects you often have different CocoaPod versions.
Yes.
That was never implemented, so it's always like a pain in continuous integration, finding the version.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Exactly on that point, that's one of the big wins of Swift Package Manager is you will no longer need to install CocoaPods. So if you're writing a plugin, today in iOS, CocoaPods is optional, but as soon as you install a iOS plugin, then you need to install CocoaPods as well, or your app won't build. It's a huge pain point. You also, in your Flutter iOS app, you have to open this runner.exe workspace file. I don't know if you've needed to do this, but there's also a separate runner, xproj, I think it is, something like that. Thank you. I should know this. I don't know. Anyways, but yes, and the fact that there's two separate files is a common pain point for customers, just like finding out about this. So these kinds of things we'll finally be able to clean up with Swift Package Manager, because Swift Package Manager is in the box in Xcode. That's
Yeah,
right.
so I think it's just like a huge improvement
Yes.
when you can get rid of CocoaPods, and it's really like something that actually makes your package so much more user-friendly.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't done the migration for our package yet, but as I understand, we should support both for
Yes,
the time
that's
going
correct.
forward. And my question would be, has anybody in the room done that already? And do they have a good setup for CI to test also both, right? That would be my main concern. Okay, I also want to test the old way, or the other way, whichever I don't have in my production app, going forward, so that I actually do support both. Yeah. Do you know if this is solved for any package?
Well, I'd like to open the floor for anybody else. Has anyone done this? Okay, so the Flutter team has, because we've migrated most, not all, but almost all of our plugins to both CocoaPods and Swift Package Manager, and we do exactly what you're saying of we test both the CocoaPods integration and the Swift Package Manager integration. So the way that we've done this is, are you all familiar with the Flutter tool feature flags, how you can enable features and disable them? So we effectively have we run the CI test twice. but once we turn on the feature and once we turn off the feature, that way we can test both integrations at once. We don't actually have guidance on that in the docs, but that's something that we could add.
Yeah, or if you just tell like a package name that has it, I can just look it up. Yeah, but I think that would be super useful because you definitely want that from all packages.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Yeah, and just want to, one thing I want to explain just in case folks aren't aware of. So like you mentioned, plugins need to support both CocoaPods and Swift Package Manager. So that's kind of annoying, but the reason for this is because we expect that this migration will take a while. It really depends on how quickly the ecosystem moves. But so for some amount of time, apps might be using plugins that support Swift Package Manager and some plugins that don't support Swift Package Manager yet. So your application then will, well, the Flutter tool will attempt to build using both Swift Package Manager and CocoaPods. We attempt to, it's not perfect, so there could be issues. But yeah, so because of this, what we recommend is that you support both Swift Package Manager and CocoaPods in your plugin for now. And then eventually, in some point in the future, once the migration has gone far enough, we'll tell folks, OK, we're good to drop CocoaPods, and folks can start removing the CocoaPods integration from their plugins. But temporarily, you need to support both for the migration. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have questions.
Anybody else?
So it says we have to switch to the development branch to do this?
Yes.
Could we do it now and just have it sit there and be available as part of our package? And would it cause problems?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, yes. So for now, the feature can only be enabled on the master branch of Flutter or the main channel. And yeah, so you need to switch to the main channel and then enable the feature flag to test it. However, if you're on the stable branch, the Swift Package Manager parts will just be ignored. And you do modifications to the CocoaPod integration as well. But that will still work on stable perfectly fine. But to your question, currently to test Swift Package Manager, you will need to be on the master channel and have the feature enabled. So in the next release, we're planning to have the feature available but off by default on the stable channel, so you won't need to switch channels anymore. The one thing I should call out, one feature we don't support yet, but we're actively working on, is add-to-app, working with Swift Package Manager. Currently, Swift Package Manager only works if you're just a regular Flutter iOS application, if that makes sense. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Right, yeah, so we could do the migration now, and then it'll just be ready.
Yes, yes. We've in fact, we've started bugging people, and we're telling them, we're ready to migrate, go ahead and do it. So if you own plugins, we're ready to migrate. And if you run into any issues, please reach out to me. I don't know if my email was shared, but you can email me directly, and I'm happy to help. Also, if the docs are unclear as you're migrating plugins, like anything that's unclear, you have a question, a little hiccup, please let me know as well, because I think y'all are the most advanced folks, but then there's also people that maintain plugins that are maybe less advanced, and they may have similar questions as you do. If you,
I'm advanced, but yeah.
You're at a conference. That's better than most.
I have a question. It's not really about open source software. It's actually kind of the opposite. If I ever want to again, this is for open source community, which is awesome and everything. But Flutter says it's going towards a business oriented world, and if we want to open the world towards third party developers that want to also make money, I wanted to see how you can expose our because if I want a package I have to pay for it, it's kind of hard to expose it. If there was a way to expose paid packages through the package manager and Flutter, it might want developers to pursue this, and it might grow the Flutter ecosystem, I guess.
Yeah.
That's not is there an opportunity to maybe do this in the package manager or something like that?
Do you want to take that one, Andrew?
Sure. It's not the topic of this discussion. If we could put a pin on that for the last session today, which is sustainable package maintenance models. Is that okay? But the short answer is, at least in my mind right now, is sure, let's consider it. And that's part of the discussion we want to have. How can we help the ecosystem be more sustainable in how they maintain the packages, including monetarily?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask a follow-up question. It's not really about making money, but it's about keeping like maybe some of the packages secret too. Or is this?
Yeah, and just for context, I'm going to push a little bit on this. This is a predefined topic for this discussion on Swift Package Manager. I would like to keep it within the scope of that, in the interest of the folks here for that. Okay, thanks. Anybody else?
Thanks. Maybe it's not a question, but just some fun fact. We are maintaining Patrol. It's a UI testing tool. It's heavily native. A lot of code is native in Kotlin and Swift. And we wanted to add macOS. It was like a year ago or something. And we used a gRPC. And gRPC was distributed through Cocoa Pods. And we couldn't use that with macOS because apparently Apple, a lot of packages that are in Swift, Apple already stopped upgrading it on the Cocoa Pods. And to use it with macOS, for example, gRPC, we would have to switch to SPM, which right now is available, like you said, because you already support it. But back then, there was pretty new issue, so we thought, okay, if we want to support macOS, we had to basically switch to HTTP. This is a fun fact because we had to switch a lot. But this is very important to be aware of that Apple is, I think, actively forcing community to switch. And if there's any dependency that they control, they very, I would say, openly not upgraded on Cocoa Pods and any other way of obtaining it, and it hit us then. So it's great that's being supported in Flutter. Just I wanted to share that to be aware of third party.
To add to that, is that related to the latest Xcode release or the OS X release from Apple?
I don't think so. It was a year ago. Oh, sorry. A year ago. No, I don't know. It's for the recording. Okay, sorry. I don't think so. I think it was a year ago or half a year ago, and it was just related to some Swift concurrency library that they stopped distributing other ways than Swift Package Manager. So if you wanted to have the support for other platforms or, for example, newer APIs from Apple, you would have to switch to.
Yeah. And for context, the iOS ecosystem outside of React Native and outside of Flutter has effectively already moved off CocoaPod. So if I'm writing an iOS package, why would I support CocoaPods? Is kind of the mentality there. So we were already in a little bit, I know that CocoaPods now has started moving to read-only mode, but we were already in a little bit of a weird situation by being on CocoaPods still.
All right. Are there any of your any things you wanted to know from the community as well?
Do folks here have Flutter iOS plugins, and have you had issues with CocoaPods? I'd love to hear about that. And do you have any concerns about this migration too? I would also love to hear about that as well.
We work at Esri. Oh, yeah. So me and Kevin here, we work at Esri, and we're releasing our first package in November. So we've struggled with CocoaPod, so we're definitely happy that Swift would be the way to go.
One of the things we needed to do was be able to include other frameworks, like even local build frameworks that we built, including those, and we needed to shoehorn our own pods, local pods for those.
Yeah.
I've not set up something like that with Swift Package Manager before, but I imagine we should be able to just be able to edit local package to be able to incorporate those XE frameworks.
Sorry, do you need to use XE frameworks, or do you need to create XE frameworks?
We're building them. We already built
Yeah.
them.
So in
We
the
have
Swift package manager, like manifest file, I guess, you can create targets, and then you can say I need to build a static library or like a dynamic library, which allows you to control that kind of stuff. They say in their docs, I'm not exactly sure I understand why, that they prefer for you to omit that so that they can control it. But then there's scenarios where it's actually important for you to control it. For example, like if you're doing FFI in Dart, you want to say which library you're using to grab the libraries from. So they're having control over, I want to make sure there's a separate library for this. It needs to be dynamically linked. It's useful to do that for that scenario. Yeah. Does that answer your question, or do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because right now we kind of had to create pods around those and then and bring them into CocoaPods. So
Yeah.
this would be nice to be able to not do that.
Yeah, so you should be able to do this, I think, just in this, there's a package.swift file, and you list targets, and you should be able to set that up there. You'll need to redo it, of course, but you should be able to control that.
Great.
Great. Any other challenges, issues, concerns about risk not talked about yet?
I feel bad for Ruby.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is a good thing, because today you...
I was just saying, I feel bad for Ruby.
Yeah.
I like Ruby, but now we don't have any reason to use it, so we're just going to drop it as soon as we can.
Yep. Yeah. It's one fewer dependency to install Flutter, so this is a good thing. And a common pain point was to use CocoaPods. The system installed Ruby version is actually too low to run latest CocoaPods. So many people run into the issue of how do I upgrade Ruby and then use CocoaPods there. So it's a good thing we're dropping Ruby, as much of a wonderful language as that is.
All right. Any other questions, concerns?
Sorry, maybe it was already covered, but is the deprecation policy for CocoaPod support, is it like you're going to remove it completely one day, or it's going to be always there for the legacy usage? Because I can imagine that when we develop apps, there are a lot of some third-party SDKs that are not updated anymore, not maintained anymore.
Yeah.
And for example, for some business purpose, some client wants us to use this exact thing that's already only, for example, on Carthage and
Right.
CocoaPods or stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. We should talk about that, actually. So we don't have concrete plans yet of dropping CocoaPods, though that is the long-term vision we would like to go to. But the speed of which we do this is something that'd be interesting to hear feedback on. So currently our plan, high level, not concrete, but what we're thinking is we would add telemetry to see when people build, are they using CocoaPod plugins or are they using Swift Package Manager plugins? And then using that telemetry, getting a sense of how high is the usage of CocoaPods. And at some point, we don't know what point, we'd be like, okay, this usage is low enough for us to drop it. One thing we want to be mindful of is integrating into two separate build systems is very costly for us. So we don't want to maintain that forever. We do want to drop CocoaPods, but we don't want to do it too quickly where these kinds of scenarios that are important are useful. So does that seem like a reasonable idea to y'all? Is that, or would that be too fast? Like, we'd love to hear feedback and criticisms.
Yeah, it would be great if there was any way of somehow converting an existing stuff to SPM or some other framework, but probably it's not possible. I don't know. I'm not so into it. I don't know, but it would be great if there would be any way of maybe for you to not maintain support for both systems.
Yeah.
The other way, that there could be a way of somehow, augmenting the wrapper package for that, I don't know, so that we can treat it as, I don't know, a framework or something like that. Just for those, because from telemetry, you would have 99% of SPM usage, but
Yeah.
still you have some, I don't know, legacy
Yeah.
payment library that some people have to use.
Yeah.
And they will yell about, oh no, Flutter support ended and we cannot build anymore, stuff like that. I'm thinking, how can we, have cookie and eat cookie? Probably it's impossible, but it would be great.
One thought, as you were saying that, maybe we could pre-build CocoaPods. Like if I have an XE framework, Swift Package Manager can just use that if it's pre-built already. So that might be interesting to add is, CocoaPods, but still use a pre-built one. Yeah. Would you mind writing that one? Thanks.
I'm not sure it's such a big problem to have those unmaintained packages if they are public. So it could be forked.
Yes.
So maybe that's a thing that works for most packages. So it's not necessarily a problem to migrate of CocoaPods fully.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. I personally would like to minimize that as much as possible, but that is definitely an option that's on the table. There are going to be plugins that are going to be the long tail for migrating, and we'll have to look at our options there.
So I'm going to get really down and dirty to this. So I have a pub spec YAML file and a pod file lock.
Yeah.
So when I turn on this migration to Swift Package Manager, what should we be looking for explicitly here? Like when we do the builds, like where do we migrate? Like, is it really just focusing on the pub spec files and looking at the dependency tree from the pod file? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would go look at the documentation because we have a guide on how to migrate a plugin and go through that. Effectively, at a high level, what you need to do is, so we have you change your directory structure a bit. The reason being is we need a directory structure that works for both CocoaPods and Swift Package Manager at the same time. It seems a little bit convoluted, but it's the easiest that could be made. So you have to move some source files around. Then you need to add a package.swift file that says this is where you can find my code, these are my dependencies, this is how I want to be built, that kind of stuff. And then you need to go back to your pod file and you need to update it to tell it things like, these are where my sources are now that I've updated my directory structure. And then there's some, that's mostly it. If your package contains Swift code, this is very easy to do, it's pretty easy. If you have Objective-C code, it's a little bit harder. If you have both Swift and Objective-C code, that's the hardest, the most fun. But it's still supported and still works, but just more steps. Okay. And if you have any issues running into that, I would love feedback.
I think maybe related to your question is, for the consumer, what would change? So if they also have to switch to SPM mode, yeah, so not as a package author, but for the consumer, what changes? And for example, can I use CocoaPod dependencies and SPM dependencies? We might imagine some new package only doing this from the start, right? Can I use them side by side? And
yeah, so the two questions, how's your experience different as an app developer? So as an app developer, if you open the Xcode project, I don't know if that's a common scenario for, I work on Flutter every day, so I do this all the time, but if you open the Xcode project, you will see that the layout is slightly different. So in the Xcode sidebar, in the project navigator, there's a list of Swift packages that you will see now, and you will see that Flutter inserts one, it generates one, so you'll see that there. With CocoaPods, you would see that you had a pods project, I believe, and you would see your plugins there because they were inserted into the build using that pods project. That will now become empty, and if you have no pods at all, we actually have a migration that recommends you just remove this entirely, so it would clean up your Xcode project a little bit, though that's not actually necessary, it's optional. So from an app developer, you will see in Xcode some changes. Ideally, if you're just in VS Code, for example, and you're just messing with your Dart code, it's seamless, you don't see anything at all. That's our goal.
And maybe a second question, but I don't even really know what to ask. So historically, I think we had to have iOS and macOS folders in our Swift plugin. And in our plugin, we only have a Darwin folder and then have some symlinks because it's exactly the same classes, but it had to be 2 folders or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that something that is also?
There is. Actually, this is a great question. So there is a Darwin folder that was added, was it a year ago, 2 years ago? I forget when. Sorry?
I don't remember when we had it.
It's fairly new, so it's totally understandable that you don't know about this. But yeah, so there's the Darwin folder, and this is used in the case where your iOS plugin and your macOS plugin are the exact same thing. So you just use the Darwin folder instead. You need to change your pub spec a little bit to say, I believe you have to say, like, I use the Darwin folder. So if you go to our plugin docs, we should have information about how to use the Darwin folder. And I would highly recommend, if you're in the case that you have a plugin that has the same iOS and macOS code duplicated, I would do the Darwin migration first, create that folder, and then do the Swift Package Manager migration, because it'll make your life a little bit easier. You don't have to migrate 2 separate folders to the new structure. Don't have to do it twice.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, so I will do that first. Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
Also, I forgot to answer one of your earlier questions about do we support an app that has both Swift Package Manager and CocoaPods plugins? The answer is kind of yes, but not always. So there's an issue where your dependencies themselves can have dependencies, and those. So effectively, you have a build graph from CocoaPods, and you have a build graph from Swift Package Manager, and these need to be completely separate build graphs. There can't be any overlap whatsoever, otherwise your build will fail. So as long as your plugins have no shared dependencies, then you're okay. And you can use both Swift Package Manager and CocoaPods at once. And if you're not in that case where you do have shared dependencies for whatever reason, the things you can do is either upgrade go ask that shared dependency to migrate to Swift Package Manager, or you can opt out of Swift Package Manager for your project until those dependencies are upgraded. Yeah, so that's a good question.
One question, because I don't know how it's SPM distributed. So is it like with Xcode and it's pinned with Xcode? Does it mean that because with CocoaPods, with all its bad things, the good thing was that you could just update it as a gem?
Yeah.
And with SPM, would the Flutter users would be like forced to, for example, update the whole Xcode because of some dependencies, or what's like?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I don't know what's the question exactly, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If there will be potentially even more reasons to change Xcode versions,
Yes,
basically.
Yes. That's an excellent question. I don't know that we fully thought through that, so that's a great question to ask. So the reality is Flutter integrates very deeply with Xcode. It may not be obvious, but like we do some horrible things to run your apps. So I think that was still true today. And it becomes a little bit more true with the fact that we're now integrating with yet another thing in Xcode. You can use Swift Package Manager outside of Xcode. There's a Swift PM command line. But we're not really set up to use that. But that if you want to no, sorry, that's not really relevant.
Maybe it's very important to say that in the docs, because some people could have Swift PM both in the command line and in the Xcode in different versions, for example, because of the homebrew. And a lot of devs have some things from homebrew, some from gems, some from Xcode.
Yes.
So maybe it would be very helpful so that people know what actually happens and which one Flutter uses.
Yes, we're very careful to ensure we use the one from Xcode because we want to avoid those kinds of problems. But yeah, we should call that out and make sure, like Flutter Doctor should explain that kind of stuff, and like docs, and make that clear.
Thanks.
I just had a small question. For the purpose of plugin migration, you mentioned that if the plugin is already Swift only, it's the easiest path. And the moment you introduce either full Objective-C or half and half, it could be a bit more troubling. In that case, would you recommend that if you are attempting to migrate a plugin, to first move it completely to Swift and then to Swift Package Manager?
I would do whatever is easiest for you. So if it's a very difficult migration to rewrite to Swift, then I would still go with the mixed mode. It's not that hard. It's just a couple more steps. If migrating to Swift Package Manager is harder than just rewriting it to Swift, there was a case, I forget which ones of our plugins, but we had a plugin that was in a bit of a mixed mode in Flutter packages repo, and it was just easier for us to just complete the the Swift rewrite. So we just did that, and it was so depending on your use case. Like if you just have a couple files, I would say go ahead and rewrite to Swift first. If you have tons of files that are Objective-C, then do the mixed mode instead. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, great. We have 5 minutes left. So any parting words or action items we want to, I'll maybe go over very quickly some of the key things I took as actionable. So look into some form of documenting how to do the dual implementation better and things like testing and such. And then look into how to potentially bundle or using pre-built CocoaPods in some manner. Is there some way we can ease the pain? Dig in a little bit more into what the impact is for end users, and maybe document a bit more on that side of packages, and especially during the transition period. There's look into more deeply like the SPM distribution. If there's anything we're not foreseeing in terms of dependency on Xcode, of which is already deep, but maybe just make sure we're clear on that and we know the implications. And looking at documentation and potentially things like Flutter tool, ensuring that developers don't have conflicts on the source of SPM itself. That's what I have so far. I will be publishing these notes as well for everybody after this, and the video will come out at some point. Loic, any sort of parting words or action items or things you would love to get back? I will. One thing I was thinking is to make sure people know how to reach us. So I will, right after we close out, I'm happy to kind of get people's. I'll share a link out where people can sort of register your attendance, and then we'll follow up if need be.
Yeah, this was wonderful. Thank you for all the feedback. Thank you for all the questions. We have tons of action items to follow up on, so that's exactly what we were looking for. So thank you so much for attending and giving us your thoughts.